Let's see, today I'm going to try and take a video of removing the door latch assembly and door panel on my 2012 Ford Edge. I'm having the problem where the door ajar light keeps coming on, and it's very annoying, and Ford should recall these, but they haven't yet. The problem is the door latch assembly itself. The switch is built inside the latch. I ordered a brand new latch from Ford over the internet. I got it on eBay for like $83 or something. Anyway, couldn't find anything on this, so let's see. The first things you have to do, and I already kind of took this, is you can take a screwdriver and you gently have to pry this cover right here off. And what that does is access a bolt down in this hole here. This screw you don't have to remove. Some of the instructions I found on the internet talked about removing a screw, but what they mean is there's actually a bolt, about a half inch bolt down in here. Then you'll also take a screwdriver and pry up on the window and door switch assembly. You can pry that up with a screwdriver and it just pops out, and then you'll have to undo the two cables, which I've already done here. Now, underneath the door, you'll find two screws. Oops, let me see if I can get these in the video here. But there's two Phillips head screws under here that you'll have to remove. So let me pause this for a while. I don't have a decent camera to do this, and I'll try and see what I can do here. One of the things I also recommend is that everyone that's having this problem with the door latch assembly go to safecar.gov and report the vehicle, and hopefully they'll do a recall on this. I'd save your receipts if you buy the part, because hopefully they'll recall these. It's been a major problem with almost all the Ford vehicles. So I've got, I think it's a 10mm socket here. I'm going to remove this one. There's also a screw down in here that we'll take out. Okay, and as well as the two screws on the bottom, I found on the inside of the door jamb, there's one additional screw, just a Phillips head screw. I'll go ahead and remove that, and then I should be able to just pop the interior cover off the door and the interior panel, and that should come right off. Let's see, I've taken out the two screws underneath down here, one here, the one screw here, the bolt in here in the pocket where the window switches were, the bolt here. What I did was I then reached underneath here and I popped out the door panel. You pull it out, it'll snap loose, and then you should be able to carefully lift the whole door panel, and it should just come right off. Now you'll have a couple wires to undo down in here. Okay, next there are these two rubber plugs, one here above the speaker you'll have to pull out, and another one back here. I'm filming all this with a cell phone, so don't expect too much out of this video in terms of quality. By pulling these two plugs out, it'll give you access to the bolts that hold the window in, the clamps that hold the glass. And so what we're going to do is I'm going to plug back in the window switch here, plug these two wires back in so I can roll down the window just a couple inches until I can see the bolts for the window clamp, the glass clamp, in this hole here. Let's see if I can do this without the window going all the way down. Okay, and it's a Torx, so you'll need a Torx driver to do this job here. But now you can see these two clamps here. What you'll need is some tape, because you're going to have to tape the window up in position, in the closed position, once we loosen these two bolts. So we're going to just loosen. You don't want to take these bolts out. What it is, it's a pinch clamp. It just kind of, let me see if I can imitate, it just grabs the glass and clamps onto it. It's got like rubber grips on these things. So you're just going to loosen these a couple turns, enough to where it releases the window. So you're just opening up these clamps on the bottom of the window. And likewise, when you go to tighten them up, you don't want to kill those bolts either, because I guess there's a possibility you could break the glass, but it's just a clamp that holds down on the glass. Okay, now what I've done is, you see I put some racer's tape here, or duct tape, along the glass seam. I've raised the window up. I loosened up the Torx bolts that clamp the glass. I raised the glass all the way and then put some tape in place. So now this will keep the window from falling. Once you remove all the guts out of there, you really don't want that window coming down. You could break it. So, you know, don't be cheap with the tape. Use good tape and make sure that, you know, that window's gonna stay in place. My assistant here, gotta get him out of the way. Now we can roll the window regulator down a bit, and the window will stay in place. And next here, what you'll see is a whole bunch of these 10mm bolts that hold the door panel in. There's a bunch around here. Let's see if I can get my finger all around the door panel here. And I can't remember if there was a hidden one or not. I don't think there is, but you'll have to take those loose next. Okay, now at the end of the door, there are two rubber plugs, and you'll have to remove the lower one of these. And what that does, there's a Torx behind it, which looks like a T25, and you'll have to remove that and carefully and not drop it down inside the door, and that will loosen up the door handle. This whole assembly here, everything, this whole inner door panel, the regulator, the door handle, the latch itself, which is these Torx here, all comes out together as one unit apparently. I've actually never done this job before. I'm reading some instructions while I'm doing it. My lower bolt here actually would not come loose. The bolt spun, and in the little nut that was built in the door, I guess, stripped out. So I had to use a die grinder to cut the head of the bolt off. Hopefully you won't have that problem. Okay, I've removed the three Torx that hold the door latch in place down here. I've removed the Torx out of this hole here, and what that does is it allows me to pull this lock assembly gently out and kind of just pull it away from the car. That should give me access to get some of the rest of this apart. Okay, well, it looks like next we're going to grab the door handle here and slide it towards the rear of the car some and pull it out, and it should just come loose there. Let's see. So far so good. That came out. Okay, there's another Torx here. This one it says to just loosen. Don't remove it, just loosen it enough that the assembly can slide. Well, I ended up having to remove the Torx, and I pushed the whole assembly in from the front. I had to push a little bit on the lock cylinder too, and the whole assembly just kind of popped in there, and it's loose inside there now, just flopping around. Over on the inside of the door here by the hinge, there's a rubber flap where the wires go in. I pulled that up a little bit. It looks like my wires are going to be in the way a little bit. There's a little clamp here and another push pin down here, and I'm going to try and get those loose so I get more slack on these wires. But you can see that everything has dropped down, and everything inside the door, the latch, the handle, everything is now loose and just kind of hanging. Okay, fellow campers, I think if I was to do this job again, remember I told you to remove this rubber plug and try and carefully remove the Torx screw that behind there. It's recessed about an inch or two, and I think I told you to be careful not to drop it, and of course I dropped mine. And where it went, after spending quite a bit of time, is it dropped right down. There's this crash support going across the middle of the door here, and right over here where it fits the end of the door, this screw dropped right down in there. Right down, well, let's see if I can get the camera in there, but right down behind my finger. I have no idea how I'm going to fish that out yet, but it's going to be fun to get that out of there. Probably, I know you can remove the door panel a little bit, maybe enough to get your hand in there, so maybe before taking that Torx bit out, maybe stuff a little toilet paper in there or something so that when that Torx bit does drop, it doesn't go back there. The wonders of time-lapse photography here. I was, after about a half hour, I was able to fish this little Torx screw out from behind this panel in the door there where it got wedged in pretty good. Learn from my mistakes and do not drop that. Anything you can do to keep that from happening would be great. Maybe even stuff something in the hole to begin with, some paper towels or toilet tissue or something to fill up the gap underneath, so when that does drop, it doesn't fall down and wedge itself inside that little inner panel. Okay, fellow campers, now I've undone the plug for the wires that goes to the module here that I'm holding in my hand. On the back side, where my thumb is pointing, there's two little bumps there, raised bumps. And what there is if you reach around inside, there's two bolts. And it looks like if I take these bolts out from the inside, and I can reach around back there with a wrench, undo them, that this whole assembly here will come loose from this. I still have, looks like 3 linkages for the lock assemblies and stuff I'll have to deal with. I'll figure that out in a little bit. Alright, fellow campers, I've taken the little black doohickey off the top here. And what I'm trying to do is see if I can get this rod to come down through the hole. I've got this assembly loose from the inner door panel. The door panel is just hanging. There's this one little cable here, wire, and it looks like I need a little more room, so I'm going to try. There's a couple wire ties here. I'm going to try and cut one, and then if I have to, I'll cut the other to get a little more slack, and hopefully I can pull this through. Well, I did that and undid the wire tie, and that still didn't help me. Now I'm looking for the cable that comes from the door handle back, this cable here. It looks like, looking at the new part, right where my pinky is pointing, this section should be able to pull out by me, and hopefully I'll get enough slack in that cable that I'll be able to pull this through, because this rod I think has an S-bend, so I can't undo it. If I take a look at my new part here, let's see, here's where that cable goes in. So it looks like there must be like a little tab or something that'll pop out, and that'll whole cable should just pull out towards me, and hopefully that'll give me the slack I need. Okay, that worked. Let's see if I can hold this steady enough. You'll see there's a little tab I'm touching with my index finger. I reached behind and pushed that tab down, and it allowed this to pop out. There's just a little S-bend on the cable here. I was able to pull the whole thing loose now. Hopefully should give me enough room to get that lock rod out. Alright, amazingly enough that worked. Now I was able to take this piece here. Notice which hole it comes out of. There's 2 holes there. The other one doesn't seem to get used for anything, but I was able to pull this thing towards me, and it just has a little S-bend on it that, you know, when you go to reassemble it, you're just going to put this in the new one and bend it back in there. Yeah. Well, I should let you guys figure this jigsaw puzzle out yourself. I was able to pop this thing open with a screwdriver here. The new part comes with one, so if you break it, don't worry about it, or check, make sure your new one comes with one. But to release the lock assembly from this plastic assembly here, there's a little tab down here that you can just kind of grab with your thumb, and you pop that out. And this thing, the whole lock assembly should come loose now, and you got one more rod coming from something. Okay, and while I'm at it, on the other end, there was a little tab I had to push down here with a screwdriver right where my thumbnail is. Mine had a little white line paint on it. I pushed that down, and that allowed this whole thing to come loose now. Okay, now that I've got everything back in the hole here, I got one of these little bolts here, and I'm just going to stick it finger tight right in here, just to keep this door panel from popping back out. Everything kind of went back together the opposite way it came out so far with getting the panel on. Had to put the top in and then put the top side of the guts in there and then lift it up and get the bottom in and drop it down. Maybe if I was to do it again, I might not have the window regulator all the way down, but maybe just most of the way down. I'm not sure. Again, I've never done this, but now, before you do anything else, and the reason I only put one of those bolts in is we're going to go to the outside of the door here, and we need to put our lock assembly back together. There's two tabs right here, so somehow I need to get those two tabs to latch on the door here, pull this thing back in, and put that Torx in. And more importantly, put the Torx in from the outside here in this one, trying to be extremely, extremely careful not to drop it when I put it back in. We'll have to see how that goes. Fortunately for the sensors, I'm here working by myself, and even my four-legged assistant left to go play with the dog across the street, so I can't video and do this at the same time, so I've got to pause this, and you won't hear me yelling and screaming when I drop that bolt. Actually, what I'm going to try here is I went ahead and just used some racer's tape here and taped the Torx screw onto the head of my driver here, and I'm going to leave that on there until I get the screw started and about halfway in. Then I'll reach in there with some tweezers or forceps or something and try and pull the tape out. Okay, it looks like I got everything back together. Now what I'm going to do is, before I remove my tape on the window, I'm going to go ahead and bring the regulator up. Oops. Try and bring the regulator up to the window here, just till it touches. And then what that does is allows the window to sit in those cradles there we talked about before. And I'm going to remove my tape, assuming the window's not going to drop here. Okay, got that. Just take your wad of tape and throw it on top of your Ferrari there for the minute. Now what I'm going to do is go ahead and roll the window down again so I can get at these Torx, and again you want to try and do this slowly and be ready to jog the switch a little bit because, you know, if the window goes into automatic mode. Okay, I can see the Torx here. I'm going to just kind of jiggle the window by hand, make sure it's seated, and I'm going to tighten those up. Again, don't tighten them too much. And the main thing I'm going to tell you about at this point is don't forget to put these rubber plugs in now as soon as you tighten these up, because it's a pain in the ass to have to take the door panel apart again a second time just to put these stupid things back in. And everything else is pretty self-explanatory. To put the door panel back in, there's a groove up here that the door panel hooks on. I'm showing my finger here, and it just drops down in. You'll push the little lock doohickey thing up through there. Before I actually slam the door, in fact, I think this is a good point that I'm going to actually test the door to make sure it opens and closes and locks and everything okay. And I'm going to open one of the other doors to make sure I can still get in the vehicle. So, wish me luck. Okay, hopefully you've watched this entire video first before attempting this. Before putting the Torx screw in this hole here, what that does is holds this piece in. So I forgot to put that in first. So apparently, I guess before I put the inner door panel together, I should have put this together, put that Torx in and tightened it down. Now I'm going to have to try and see if I can get that Torx out without dropping it in the door. Otherwise, I'm taking everything apart again to find it. Okay, just a couple follow-ups. Hopefully you've watched this all the way to the end before trying this. But this screw here just needs to be loosened about maybe 1/4 of an inch, and then you can take this piece out. So you don't even need to take this screw out all the way. You just loosen it a little bit, and it'll stay with the latch assembly. Also, make sure the rod for the latch, the rod that goes from the door handle on the outside down is in exactly the way I show it in the video. I had to take mine apart a second time. And then also these 10mm screws that go in here, tighten those very, very lightly. I've had 2 of the threaded inserts now strip, and I didn't even tighten them that much. So just be very, very careful with those. Use a 1/4 inch drive and just put them in, you know, almost finger tight and nothing more. And I apologize for the horrible video here on the quality. Like I said, I am using a cell phone to do this, and so if you have any complaints about this, complain to Ford about their lousy idea. Don't complain to me about the video. I was just trying to show people how to do this because I couldn't find any instructions myself.